delegation meeting. We are now being recorded. So with that, I'm going to ask Delegate Chisholm to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you for bestowing upon us your grace and loving hand as we seek to do your will and not our own. May we all embrace our purpose and awesome responsibility as leaders that you have set forth in us with kindness in our hearts, compassion in our actions, and love in our hearts and hands. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Delegate Chisholm. What I'd like to do at this point is acknowledge all of our guests this morning, and we have a number of guests with us. I see Senator Chris Van Hollen, our esteemed senator from the state of Maryland. I also see, and I want to give a shout out to Jessica Cook, who is here on behalf of Senator Cardin. And I would just ask everyone, if you have issues that, that for Senator Cardin, reach out to Ms. Cook. And I know that she would do a fantastic job making sure that those concerns are addressed. I see, I think our senators are on the call. I'm going to recognize them, just our state senators, just in case they're not, but Senator Pam Vital. I know I received a text this morning from Senator Sarah Elfra. We also have Senator Simon Ayer and Senator Big Ed Riley. They probably haven't come on yet, but I'm sure they will at some point. So I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge them. We also have with us today the commander and my good friend, Colonel Chris Nyland from Fort Meade. And I see a number of folks, and if he has any guests that are along with him, I'll allow him to make those introductions before he brings remarks. I see Tim O'Farrell from the Meade Alliance. I see, I saw Christy Simon, but she seems to maybe move to another seat. Nope, there she is, Christy. Thank you, from the Central Maryland Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for all you do. Seems like everywhere I go, I run into you, but that's a good thing. And if I don't capture you on this first go around, I'll certainly try to. I see Jessica there again, and smiling at the screen, Jessica Cook. Ronnie Nadiv. Ronnie's another one of those guys with the BWI partnership who's all over the place. Ronnie, thank you for joining us. I don't see Gina Stewart, but if Ronnie's here, Gina has to be here as well. And really appreciate all the great things that Gina does with the BWI partnership and with the Meade Alliance. I see Mayor Bill Sanders. Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining us this morning. And again, if there's anyone that I missed, I'm sure that my vice chair will square me away and make sure that I acknowledge those folks that I may have missed as we go through. We have a very busy agenda. We have several bond initiatives. We're going to have some remarks from Senator Van Hollen. We've got a vote to take in a hearing. And so I see Senator Van Hollen's hand up. Senator, I can recognize you now, but we do have you for remarks in a couple minutes, if that's okay.
I did not have my hand up, Mr. Chairman. So
okay. Well,
I don't know who did.
Now it's down. So we will definitely be coming back to you very shortly. So with that, the first thing on the agenda is the vote for House Bill 718, Anne Arundel County Local Development Council delegate appointments. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move favorable.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Secretary, could you take the roll?
Vice Chair Bagnall.
Yes.
Delegate Barnes. Delegate Bartlett. Delegate Carey. Delegate Chang.
Yes.
Delegate Chisholm.
Yes.
Delegate Henson.
Yes.
Delegate Howard,
Yes.
Delegate Jones,
Yes.
Delegate Kipke,
Yes.
Delegate Lehman,
Aye.
Delegate Munoz,
Yes.
Delegate Penny Melnick,
Yes.
Delegate Saab,
Yes.
Chairman Rogers,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 12-0, 3 absent, and the motion passes.
Thank you, Shannon. If we could also send a delegation letter to Ways and Means, that would be great. The next thing we have is a hearing for House Bill 635. So with that, I'm going to step down and turn the con over to the Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, if you'd like to go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Vice Chair Bagnall, members of the Anne Arundel County House Delegation. I respectfully request a favorable report of House Bill 635. With the proposed amendment, this bill extends several exemptions for property tax to waterway improvement districts, shoreline erosion control districts, assessments in keeping with the Anne Arundel County's longstanding practice. Anne Arundel County also currently extends property tax exemptions to special community benefit districts and will pursue local legislation under existing authority to continue that practice. The largest of these exemptions affected by this gap in state law is exemption for disabled active duty service members, a disabled veteran or surviving spouse of an individual who died in the line of duty. This bill will help the county to continue to provide relief to those individuals. For these reasons, I respectfully request a favorable report on House Bill 635. Madam Vice Chair, I'd like to call my panel. I think we have the County Executive's Office who is prepared to testify on this bill.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this bill forward. With me is Ethan Hunt from the County Office of Law and Hannah Dyer from our Budget Office. The chairman spoke very well about this bill and described exactly what it is. I'm cognizant I have a United States Senator behind me, so I'm going to speak quick. This county practice has been to not charge these assessments to folks who have these exemptions. So this bill is codifying current county practice. As the chairman mentioned, we have an amendment. That amendment will take out the SCBDs because we have the authority under local law to do that. And the county will pursue legislation for the next tax year locally to fix that issue. So with that, we respectfully request a favorable report and are happy to answer any questions on this bill.
Are there any questions from the delegation? Give it a moment. Seeing no questions, this concludes the hearing on HB 635.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. At this time, it is, well, I see a question from.
I just saw a hand. Delegate Bartlett, did you have a question?
Actually, I was done with that bill. I needed to ask a question about the previous bill, please, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Bartlett.
I could hear, but I wasn't in. I couldn't get in the meeting fast enough. I would like to be listed in the affirmative of the previous vote, please. The LDC bill. Thank you.
Acknowledged. Thank you. Sienna's captured that and is nodding her head, so we'll move forward with that. Thank you so much. So with that, I want to take the opportunity to introduce our esteemed senator from the state of Maryland. Obviously, he's known as the junior senator, but he's been doing so much work on behalf of all Marylanders that you wouldn't recognize that. I've had a chance to see Senator Van Hollen out in the community. He too is everywhere and all over the place. And I just am so happy and thankful to have you bring remarks to Anne Arundel County delegation this morning. So Senator, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Chairman Rogers, and thank you for your leadership. It's great to be here with you and the entire Anne Arundel County delegation. Thank you for your good work. And as you mentioned, we have a representative from Senator Cardin's office with us as well. And we do work as a partnership and team together and with all of you. And I do want to start by thanking all of you for your extraordinary work during this pandemic in terms of trying to make sure that we get all of our constituents, all the people of Anne Arundel County, the help and support that they need, and to get our economy back in gear. And what I thought I'd do, Mr. Chairman, just provide a brief overview of some of the things we've done, some of the things we're working on, and then happy to try and answer any questions people have. You know, it was about a year ago. It was in March of last year that President Biden signed the American Rescue Plan. And that has done two major things. First, it helped deploy millions and millions of vaccines to where they were needed most, more quickly and more equitably. And it helped put up a safety net for families, workers, and the entire economy. And as you've seen, and as economists have told us, as a result of that, our unemployment rates are way below what had been anticipated last year before the passage of that bill. So it included everything from the individual payments to families, to relief to small businesses, to the Paycheck Protection Program, help for all the schools in Anne Arundel County, all the colleges and community colleges in Anne Arundel County, rental assistance, emergency rental assistance help that went directly to the county. And then, of course, the county government will receive $120 million together with municipalities in Anne Arundel County. That comes in two tranches, and it is important. I think we're all aware of how that works. So the first half of those funds already flowed, both to Anne Arundel County and all the municipalities in Anne Arundel County. The second half will flow around June, July, once all those jurisdictions report on how they spent the first half. But those have been an important lifeline to a lot of communities. I wanted to especially mention what I'm sure you're aware of, but it is a lot of funds that went to the state, right? $3.7 billion in federal funds have gone to the state of Maryland. And since all of you now are in the process of going through your own, budget efforts, I do think it's important. All of us have a stake in making sure that those funds are effectively deployed and equitably deployed. And so I just wanted to mention that specifically because I know the Department of Fiscal Services there tracks funding, but it's important that I think everybody understand the magnitude of the funds that are available there. Beyond the American Rescue Plan, we also passed the Infrastructure Modernization Bill. That will provide $7 billion to the state of Maryland over the next 5 years. And that's just the funds that travel to the State Transportation Trust Fund. So once those funds go from the federal government, they go through your normal process. And all of us obviously have an interest in working with the folks in the State Department of Transportation and other agencies as to how those funds flow. They are in different categories. I mean, there are categories for roads, there are categories for bridges and tunnels, and for transit. It's got the biggest increase in transit funds in a very long time. But I mention that because those funds have already begun to flow as well. And we just announced $400 million for bridge repair and renovation in Maryland a few weeks ago. So we look forward to working with you on the deployment of those funds at the state level. On top of that, the bill has lots of federal pots of money that states and local jurisdictions can apply for through a competitive bidding process. So I did want to underscore that as well, including in the area of broadband. I mean, the state will get $100 million for broadband right off the top, but there are other ways we can access those funds. And as you know, the state is using about $300 million from the American Rescue Funds for high-speed internet in Maryland. And so we want to work with you to track those funds to make sure that they're being well spent as well. Beyond the infrastructure bill, we're now working on our annual budget or annual appropriations process. We are behind. Our fiscal year began October 1st, and we don't have a fresh new budget. We're trying to get that done by March 11th. We're going to extend the current continuing resolution. But I want to mention that because you have the commander of Fort Meade, Colonel Nyland, and Tim O'Farrell, as well as folks from the BWI partnership. And I want them to know, as well as all of you, that we are working to try to provide the increased funding for their operations there. Fort Meade, of course, is a huge employer and economic driver in our state. It is the cyber capital really of our country and the world, with the cyber command there. And so we work very closely with Colonel Nyland and his team and with the Alliance on those appropriations, as we do with BWI on appropriations for aviation. So we're working on that right now, and hopefully we will get that over the finish line soon. Finally, we are working on the other parts of what President Biden refers to as the Build Back Better agenda. We're not going to be able to pass everything that the House adopted, but we are working to try to do a couple things: lower the cost of prescription drugs, lower the cost of child care, which, as you know, is now hugely expensive for families, and also invest in resilience, climate resilience, and clean energy. We had a down payment on that in the infrastructure modernization bill, but a lot of funds for that would flow as part of this other legislation. And I should say, we're working very closely as well with your county executive and many of you on resilience funds, for Annapolis down at the dock. So a lot going on, and I know there's a lot going on in Annapolis. Thank you for your service there. My years serving in Annapolis, were some of my favorite, and I think we got a lot done, and I know how much you can all get done, and I just want to thank you for all your efforts. And Terry Weathers from my team, our Deputy Chief of Staff, is on here, I believe, and maybe others. But please feel free to reach out to me or any member of our team on constituent matters, as well as these other issues we're talking about today. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to all of you.
Thank you, Senator Holland. And I just wanted to open the opportunity for any questions, for you to be able to take a couple questions before you have to depart. So are there any questions for Senator Van Hollen from members of the delegation? Delegate Pena-Melnick.
I just want to say thank you so much, Senator, for all your hard work. The money that came to the state is helping our 24 jurisdictions, and especially when you look at public health. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of myself and my colleagues. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Delegate Pena-Melnick. And I just want to say it's been an honor to work with you and others, because I know we have a lot of discussions with individual offices on constituent matters, as well as trying to make sure that the funds are getting where they're needed. So thank you.
And you're always very responsive. Thank you so much.
Delegate Lehman, followed by Delegate Bagnall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much, Senator Van Hollen, for being with us this morning and for the work you're doing on Capitol Hill. You make us proud, and we appreciate it. And I want to echo what Delegate Pena-Melnick said. You have fantastic staff, and all of those of us in politics know we couldn't do what we do without our staff. I just wondered if you had an update or any just very rough timeline on discussions under the Biden administration around the FBI and the renewed possibility of it leaving the district and maybe hopefully coming to Maryland, although I know Virginia would love to have it there too, but apparently that's back on the table. What might that look like?
Well, Delegate Lehman, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up and for everything you're doing. We are very determined to get the FBI relocation back on track where it had been before the previous administration. Is, I think all of you know, we had narrowed the process to 3 sites. 2 of them were in Maryland, and the other was in Virginia. Then there was an effort to derail that plan, but we are back on. We are insisting that the plan be put forward by the GSA and the FBI, essentially pick up where it left off. I chair the subcommittee on appropriations that oversees GSA, so we made very clear for 4 years that no funds were going to flow. To keep the FBI building in its existing place in DC, because that had already been found to be a security risk, and that it needed to move to a more campus-like setting, like the NSA, Fort Meade site, like the CIA in Virginia, and that in order to consolidate it, they needed more space than the current location. So, bottom line is we're working to put that back on track. That would be a huge, it'd be a huge benefit, of course, economically to Maryland, and it would also be very good for the FBI to be able to have that new location. So, as you say, I think we can beat out Virginia on this, but our goal right now is to get that whole process back on track.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate Magnum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Senator, for being here today. I wanted to take a point of personal privilege and thank you once again for remembering the artists, the gig workers, the independent contractors. That the PUA extension was such a lifeline for so many people during the pandemic. And there had been talk that potentially that program would be codified in the future, but are those talks still happening, and or is there a potential timeline for unemployment insurance programs for contract workers, independent contractors?
So, Delegate Bagnall, thank you for bringing that up, because we really do need to modernize our unemployment insurance system, and the pandemic revealed that, because we have such a big part of our economy that's not under the current structure of unemployment insurance, including, as you say, part-time workers, gig workers, and they go through the same cycles as everybody else. And so we are looking at ways to try to modernize the program on a permanent basis, as opposed to emergency response basis. I will say that will take some time to try to sort through that. It's a little bit of a longer term effort, but we're trying to learn the lessons of the pandemic in order to provide more of a permanent support. So thanks for mentioning that. And in Maryland, I think all of you know we have continuing issues with the administration of the unemployment insurance benefits. I know we've been working with many of you on a constituent by constituent basis, and I hope that whole operation can be improved and modernized as well. I should mention that I mentioned the Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses. One of the other things we were focused on doing was also helping nonprofit entities, because they also had to weather the storm, and and venues and small, and then we also did a special within the American Rescue Plan, there was a special program for restaurants that had gotten very hard hit. And we are looking at a possibility of extending some of that relief for restaurants and other very hard hit small businesses that are continuing to suffer because of Omicron. Although hopefully we are on the downside of that, and hopefully we'll put an end to it.
Thank you, Senator. And if I can just say the shuttered venues program was also an absolute, an absolute lifeline for so many. Thank you.
Thank you.
Final question will be from Delegate Chang.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Ms. Senator Van Hollen. Really appreciate your efforts and all that your leadership you're doing in Washington. This is related to Vice Chair Owen Bagnall's question with regards to the arts community. Heard a presentation earlier this week from the Maryland States Arts Council, and they're looking at about a $50 million shortfall right now to try to help with the arts community, everything from the performing arts venues to the visual arts and the entire sector and demographics of the arts community. It's been really hit very hard. And so at this time, they provide a presentation about $50 million in request. And we as a state are trying to address that and see what we can do through our appropriations process. But if any additional help can be offered and provided by the federal government, very much appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate Chang. We're looking at some extension of assistance there as well, but I have to say I'm not sure we're going to be able to provide another emergency package. We're trying, but it all comes down to the votes. I will say that $3.7 billion that came to the state can be used for that kind of purpose. It can be used to address, I think, any sort of economic pain that's been caused by the pandemic, as well as the health challenge. So, but we'll keep looking at the federal level. But that is an area that I think the federal funds could be used for that. That would be an eligible purpose, I believe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Senator Van Hollen. It is, and the budget committees are receiving a lot of different requests from various sectors of the state. So any additional assistance we can receive would be much appreciated. We do thank you and the entire delegation on the federal level for all the help that you provided state of Maryland. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for what you're doing, Delegate Chang. So
Senator Van Hollen, on behalf of the entire Anne Arundel County delegation, I want to thank you and all as you know, echoing what Delegate Chang said, all of the Maryland congressional delegation, the work that you're doing on behalf of Marylanders. We certainly see the hard work that is being put in. And I invite you to stay on for a couple of minutes, because the next voice you will hear will be from the commander of Fort Meade. And as a military retiree, I have to take a point of personal privilege and thank you, especially for the hard work that you've done on repairing 295, because I had constituents sending me emails all the time. And as you know, 295 goes right in front of, or actually across, parts of the installation and the installation control point and all the efforts there to get that done. And then, of course, Meade High School, where both of my kids graduated, the funding for the new Meade High School, all of those efforts are greatly appreciated. So with that, I'm going to transition. And again, I invite you to stay as long as your schedule allows to the commander for Fort Meade. And as folks on this call may know from the Anne Arundel County delegation, Fort Meade is the largest employer in the state with over 62,000 employees. And they're not all Anne Arundel County, but a good part of them are. And the things that they're doing with respect to Anne Arundel County workforce development, the things that they're doing with respect to other programs in the community, being a good community partner. 7 of the Anne Arundel County public schools are on or next to, adjacent to the installation. But I'm not going to take Colonel Nyland's thunder. I'm going to let him give his own presentation without, going into a slides form. But as a retiree who spends multiple days a week out on the installation, I'm very appreciative of all that Meade does. And so with that, Colonel Nyland, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you and good morning, Chairman Rogers, Vice Chairman Bagnall, and Senator Van Hollen, and all the distinguished leaders with us here today. Chairman Rogers, it's great to see you again. Senator Van Hollen, really appreciate the kind words earlier and the continued partnership with your team and your office. As Chairman Rogers said, I'm Colonel Chris Nunn and the commander of the U.S. Army Garrison here at Fort George G. Meade. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come in front of you today to give you an update on what's happening at the state's largest military base and employment center. You've talked many of the talking points already with regard to the size of the workforce. One of the things I always like to highlight, though, is the diversity of the workforce. We literally have service members from every single service in the Department of Defense, along with the Coast Guard, and as many of you know, we've already stood up several Space Force organizations here. All of those service members work side by side with an incredible group of DoD civilians representing nearly all the services also. So it's a great team between the uniformed service members and our dedicated DoD civilians. It's all supported by a very large contracting crew that help us get those missions done. And especially in times like we're in right now, I always like to highlight the fact, most of you, I'm sure, are watching what's going on over in Europe and feeling the rising tensions around the situation in Ukraine. And what I always like to highlight during times like this is the fact that your residents of your county, the service members and the civilians here on this installation right now are directly contributing to your national security by collecting and analyzing intelligence that's going on over there, by defending our cyber networks and preparing for conflict. For that conflict that is potentially growing over there, and that work is going on right now here on Fort Meade under the auspices of the security and services that we provide here, both on the installation and you provide in the local community. So, and probably the most amazing thing for me is those same people that are engaged in those activities. You'll run into at a gas station, you run into a grocery store, and you won't even know that what they've been involved in and what they've been working on, but they're working diligently in those efforts. I think this is the second time I've briefed the delegation, and I will tell you there is not a significant change in my message for the future of Fort Meade. From my seat, our future continues to be a story of growth. We continue to see new organizations seeking to move into Fort Meade. For example, just yesterday, I approved the site location for a new brigade size headquarters, approximately a 3,000 person headquarters that will be built here on Fort Meade in the coming years by the United States Marine Corps. We've got a number of organizations that are moving on to the installation this year or next year, and I continue to project over the next 5 years that we're going to have over 4,000 personnel worth of real growth for people moving from other places onto Fort Meade, along with the normal growth that just kind of occurs as missions expand and increase here on the installation. And I see no signs of that slowing down, no signs of that stopping. Honestly, my biggest challenge on a day-to-day basis here is oftentimes finding land and terrain that we can continue to build on in an environmentally responsible manner to make sure that we continue to be good partners here with the Central Maryland community. With that growth, comes the need to build infrastructure to support that growth. And so we're doing a number, as was mentioned by both Delegate Rogers and Senator Van Hollen, we're doing a number of things here on the installation to soften our impact on the community. Many of you are aware that the Reese Road access control point is currently closed because we're rebuilding that, and that will end up looking very similar to the MAPES 175 access control point, which will allow us to move a large amount of traffic that's waiting to enter the base off of 175 onto the base. And we'll also, that effort will also expand one of our major east-west arterial roads to allow better traffic inside the post. Additionally, we through the great work of the Maryland State Legislature, we are also moving ahead with the Cooper Avenue widening. So that's probably our biggest north-south arterial in post. It runs right in front of in front of DISA. And many of you might remember the legacy of this. So this was approved and funded back in 19, but eventually that money got diverted by the previous administration to the border wall. We've since got back that money and actually a little bit more to handle the inflation and price increases and everything else we're seeing. So we anticipate completing the design this year, and we're looking to award the contract for the expansion of that major north-south arterial in FY23. We are going to have to go back to Congress to get the money reprogrammed to us. The money's been allocated for us, so we've actually got the cash. But we are going to be going back to Congress to get the permission to spend that money on that road. So any support there is always welcome. Other big, we've got over $4 billion in infrastructure projects going on in the post in the next 4 years. I highlighted two of them already. Many of you are tracking the major East Campus expansion that continues on the NSA compound. We anticipate this year we will see the first tranche of employees that will return to work on Fort Meade at a daily basis from the surrounding office parks. We think that first tranche is going to be about 2,500 people. And then really over the next 8 years or so, that number will go all the way up to about 9,000 to 10,000 people that have been working in some of the surrounding office parks that will come back to work on Fort Meade proper as the East Campus continues to be built out. And so that work is continuing to go on. What's important to note about that change in how where the workforce is going to do their work is, we cannot be more thankful or more proud of all the great work that was done on 175 to expand that and to make it and to really ease the commute there. But really, that was about solving traffic problems that we were causing about 7 years ago. Since that time, we've continued to grow, and we fully acknowledge we're going to create another major change in the traffic patterns in and around the installation. We're doing, with the completion of Rockenbach Road and some work that we're planning on the ACP over at Mapes and 32, we're doing what we can inside the installation to minimize the impact on the surrounding community. But we are looking forward to any opportunities to partner with either the county executive or the delegates to look ahead on some of the potential infrastructure issues that may be caused by this change in where people are going to come to work. We would love to get ahead of it before we create a problem and before we create discontent amongst the other folks that may be trying to travel in and around the installation. A couple other big projects going on right now. The Meade High I'm going to call it a renovation project, but it is almost a complete rebuild of that school is well underway. over $100 million into that project, and we're really excited for what's going to come out the other end. So much so that we've planned, and my team is working with a partnership on a rebranding opportunity. We see this as a perfect opportunity to get after some of the narrative, some of the reputation that from all of our analysis is not well deserved, that surrounds some of the Meade cluster schools. We think those schools provide world-class education, and we want their reputation to match the quality of the education that they provide. And so we're working to partner with the community to help sell that. My team just came to me, and it ranges from everything from small things like making sure the signage is first class to, the team just came to me yesterday with an initiative to rename the road that runs into Meade High to One Mustang Way. So we're hoping to get that done for the Meade High Mustangs out there. And then the final one I just want to highlight is I talked growth earlier with a new headquarters coming in that I just approved siting for. That'll be a few years before that headquarters comes online, but there is another headquarters that will be joining us here that will start construction here. We'll start construction later this year for finishing in FY24, which is the Joint Cyber Operations Group. And so you're continuing to see the cyber operations enterprise gravitate towards Fort Meade and the state of Maryland. And I think we've created a very hospitable home, both here on the installation and the Central Maryland community. And we really appreciate everything the community's been doing to support that. Last thing I'll talk about, and then I'll get off the stage or take some questions. Coon Hall. Coon Hall has been about a 10-year program, and Tim O'Farrell and the team over at FMA have just done an amazing job organizing and helping it. And honestly, Anne Arundel's been incredible. The county's been incredible partners with us, and we really appreciate the delegation for the financial and the programmatic support out there. The work is going along great. The website that they've produced is fantastic. Here in the next few months, we should be putting in the kiosks, and it's all about providing ensuring access to not only the resources that are available here on post, but the resources that are available into the entire community are available to service members or civilians that may be struggling in a manner that eases their access to care and reduces and tries to eliminate any stigma that may result from seeking that care. And then right on top of that, just building an education center so we can get left of crisis and really help build those skills in our service members that help them deal with some of those day-to-day stressors. And that's just been an incredible, I see that as really one of the shining examples of how this community comes together in support of the installation. And I'm so grateful and humbled by what we see on a day-to-day basis in this community. So with that, I'll pause. I think I can either take some questions, or I think Tim may have some.
At this point, are there any questions for Colonel Nyland? Okay, wow, no questions. That's unusual. Very quickly, Tim, we're kind of pressed for time, but I want to give you an opportunity to say just a couple words before we get into our legislative bond hearings.
Thank you, Delegate Rogers, and thank you for the invitation to the garrison to be able to present as they do annually. As the Colonel mentioned, this is his second time presenting, and unfortunately what happens with all of our commanders, it's most likely his last, as his change of command will come this summer, and we're going to be really sorry to see him go. Delegate Rogers, I just want to thank you on behalf of the Community Covenant. For those of you who aren't aware of who the Fort Meade Community Covenant, I'm I'm privileged to serve as its chair. I am the GM, General Manager of the Fort Meade Alliance, but our founding partners on that are Gina Stewart and Ronnie Nadiv, we would mention from the BWI partner, and my friend Christy Simon, who's on the screen with me as well from the Central Maryland Chamber. We work with Chad Jones and Sherry Kuiper in the PAO's office, and also up to about over 24 community organizations, nonprofits, and Delegate Chang, you and Senator Bidel routinely participate in those, and your participation is sincerely appreciated. For those who aren't aware what the covenant is, we are discussing the health, wellness, and vitality of Fort Meade. Fort Meade is, as it's mentioned many times, the state's largest employer, and it's the largest economic engine. According to the state's own report in 2018, it represents 6% of the state's GDP. And back then, when it was a slightly smaller post, over $9 billion in annual payroll. Someone mentioned the question about, I think it was a senator, he wasn't sure, or maybe it was you, Delegate Rogers, how many people from Anne Arundel County. Those early estimates have 40% of the 67,000 folks in uniform or civilians that go to Fort Meade every day for those missions are Anne Arundel County residents. So a really important marker. You know, I want to reiterate something that is understated. You know, that the Fort Meade, especially in today's current climate, when you look to the world's attention to China for the Olympics and the potential invasion of Ukraine, we're asking men and women in uniform, as well as civilians, to step up into the fray right here from Anne Arundel County. Fort Meade is a forward operating base, and with the largest organizations being U.S. Cybercom, the NSA, DISA, Marine Force Cyber, Navy 10 Fleet, those men and women in uniform and out at Fort Meade are dealing with some high stressors, and the Covenant's role is to listen and connect and show that there's a community to support them. So it's a real honor and privilege to be able to do that. And I do want to reiterate something that the Colonel mentioned wearing my Fort Meade Alliance hat. I can't thank the delegation. The state and the county have contributed over $2 million to Coon Hall. And we consider Coon Hall the penultimate example of how this community can rally behind and understand what we ask of the men and women at Fort Meade. And more importantly, how one project can bring together both organizations inside the fence line and outside the fence line to work together, communicate, and really, really help our entire community heal, be resilient, and grow. There's nothing better than taking a young soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guard, or Guardian from the new Space Corps and teaching them a skill on how to care for themselves, giving that innate skill that says, oh, I can take care of myself. And these drastic pressures that make me make drastic decisions can fade away because look, I'm taking care of one little aspect. Maybe it's a coding class or a nutritional cooking course, but they're caring for themselves. And that's been enabled in large part to the support both from the county delegation through the state and the LDC. And we can't thank you enough. So Delegate Rogers, thank you for this opportunity.
So Tim, thank you for those remarks. Colonel Nyland, thank you for all that you do for not only as the garrison commander, AKA mayor of Fort Meade, but your community partnership. And as my vice chair reminded me, a sign of a great presentation is no questions. So with that, again, want to thank Christy Simon. I see her, Ronnie Deeb and Gina Stewart for your participation as part of the alliance and the partnership. And so we're going to go, we invite you to stay as your time allows, but we're going to move right into the legislative bond initiatives. And so with that, the first person presenting sponsor will be Delegate Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, pardon me, for the opportunity to present legislative bond initiatives. I see that we have Mr. Stewart here from Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Mr. Stewart, we have a bond that would bring some outdoor recreation to Annapolis Middle School. Are you prepared to make a presentation as to the specifics?
Certainly. So I met with Delegate Henson a couple of weeks ago. We were looking at, she had suggested an outdoor basketball court. We have an old tennis court near the cell tower that was basically level. It could be basically refurbished to become an outdoor basketball court. The one thing that just happened yesterday, our superintendent, Dr. Lotto, received an inquiry from the Annapolis Soccer Club to actually use that exact same court. So I just wanted to mention it to Delegate Henson and Senator Elfith. Do they know about this? Because we just want to make sure everybody's coordinating, and certainly I can't have two people in the same spot. So that's something we need to work out. And again, the school system will work with whomever. But I just wanted to make sure you're aware of this latest development. Basically, it's to put in what's called futsal. It's basically it's usually played indoors, but it's kind of soccer with a different ball, but could be played on a hard surface. And they were trying to basically do it outdoor, basically the same size as a basketball court with some nets and fencing. So anyway, just wanted to let you know about that. But again, we're supportive of this. The estimate for the basketball court was $100,000 bond bill, and fact sheet's been submitted.
Stewart, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to present. The campus there at Annapolis Middle School is a school that serves over 1,000 students in the heart of the city of Annapolis. It's a school with great walkability that have many students that walk to the school, and it makes it an attractive campus for outdoor recreation investments because those same students have the opportunity to visit the campus on the weekends and participate in many things. As Mr. Stewart just said, there are outdoor soccer fields that are used there at the school. There is an outdoor tennis court that is not operable and has not been in use for some time. And then there is an outdoor basketball court there. The request from the community is to refurbish the tennis court into a basketball court so that students will have the opportunities on the weekend to receive instruction, play competitive games, and be able to use the campus as a true community resource. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Henson. At this time, and not seeing any questions, we're going to move forward to Delegate Carey. And I know that Mr. Stewart is listed to present as well. So Delegate Carey. I don't see Delegate Carey. Mr. Stewart, would you like to talk about North Glen Elementary School very briefly?
Certainly. North Glen Elementary School is located along Furnace Branch Road in the north part of the county. It's a very busy road. There's an existing sign that was installed many years ago, a brick sign with an old-fashioned marquee, very similar to the Linthicum Elementary School. That was a bond bill, I believe, 2 years ago. What the wish of the local community was to basically make a digital marquee. It's a two-sided sign, and refurbish the brick sign just to basically communicate to the residents along that corridor. And the cost is $40,000 for both the electronics, the brick repairs, and some electrical work that needs to be done for that installation.
All right, thank you for that presentation, Mr. Stewart. Next, we have Delegate Chisholm and Kipke for Chesapeake High School.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Kipke here. Chesapeake High School is one of only a handful of high schools in the county that does not have a standalone building on their turf field for their athletics department to use. Glen Burnie High School, thanks to the delegation and Delegate Carey and others, recently has been upgraded. Northeast High School has a brand new field house. Severna Park High School does, and I believe Senator Bidle and her team have one coming to North County. So the boosters at Chesapeake High School have asked us for support in getting this moving forward. The goal of it obviously is for the very powerful Delegate Chang to muscle through some big bucks for the Cougars at Chesapeake High School, and we're hoping and we're counting on him for that. But really, if we could just move forward with at least some planning and design money to get the ball rolling, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, we were made aware of this request. I've met with the school this week to talk about a location for this. As Delegate Kipke indicated, there are 3 schools currently in our high schools that don't have field houses. And this is certainly one of them. We're supportive of it, and we think it would be best to go ahead and, if we can get planning money, to basically try to come up with some estimates similar to what we did at North County High School, where we did kind of a phased approach. So we're basically looking for that initial funding source to start the design and get real cost estimates for the project.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart, and thank you, Delegate Tipke and Chisholm, for bringing that bond bill initiative. Unless there are any questions, we will proceed to the Ancient City Lodge, and that's Delegate Henson and Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to present on the Ancient City Lodge. I don't believe we have a representative from the lodge here with us, so I will do the presentation if the chair permits. The Ancient City Lodge is located in the city of Annapolis on West Washington Street. It's not far from our State House complex. The Ancient City Lodge is affectionately known amongst the city as the Elks Lodge. It is a lodge that has hosted our annual Labor Day Parade, a lodge that has historic roots in the African American community, and it's also a neighbor to our very own DGS building. The Ancient City Lodge has needs for capital improvements that include reconstruction to its floor area, reconstruction to its second floor, and the remediation of some hazardous materials that are there on site. The Ancient City Lodge is a historic and valued member here in the city of Annapolis that provides many community resources, and it is with that that we make the request for legislative bond funding. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any questions for Delegate Henson? Not seeing any questions, we will move on to the next bond bill bond bill initiative, which again is Delegate Henson, and that is the Dr. Mary Church Terrell Building. And Delegate Jones. So Delegate Jones, looks like you want to take this one. Please.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I'm extremely excited to have a leader, an environmentalist, and Mayor Bill Sanders here, and I would like to recognize him, Chair, for 2 minutes, please.
Mr. Sanders, Mayor Sanders.
Yes, thank you very much. And I can tell you that I am really excited and very honored to be here. Let me first thank our sponsors, Senator Elfridge, Delegate Jones, and Delegate Henson. Our project is construction of the Mary Church Terrell Pavilion. The pavilion will be an open air facility that is congruent with our current times, that is to provide an open air outdoor recreational facility for our residents. Now more than ever, I think we realize we need to know how important it is to have outdoor spaces as a viable adjustment to our new normal, living with an ongoing pandemic. The new pavilion would be a 30-foot wide octagonal structure, but it would be much more than that to our community. And let me just give you a brief bit of context to explain that. Now, Highland Beach was established as a safe sanctuary for African Americans at a time when the beaches, including nearby Washington, D.C., were segregated and thus excluded African Americans. Dr. Terrell's legacy in Highland Beach began the year of our founding in 1893, when at the urging of their good friend, Frederick Douglass, Dr. Terrell and her husband brought their Highland Beach lot next door to the Douglass summer home. Dr. Terrell was one of the first African-American women to earn a college degree and later became nationally known as a noted activist for civil rights and women's suffrage. Douglass's summer home now is the Frederick Douglass Museum and Cultural Center, and Dr. Terrell's descendants still reside in her home next door to the museum. And just to fast forward quickly from our foundings in the 1900s, from the 1940s to the 1970s, Highland Beach residents enjoyed a pavilion on the beachfront, which was a major focal point for the community. Many notables of the day would visit the community and the pavilion, but perhaps more importantly for our residents, the pavilion was a place for residents to meet, play cards, show first run and home movies, dance to the music of the day, and hold talent shows. It was demolished in the 1970s after being moved back from the beach to the road due to steadily eroding beachfront and when it became unstable due to structural problems. The community did not have the funds at that time to replace the structure, but the desire to do so, to rebuild the original pavilion, prevails to this day. Thanks again for the opportunity to make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any questions? Seeing none, and just as a reminder to the delegation, as I have been reminded, sponsors have the opportunity to present, and there's not a time limit on our sponsors, but on all of our supporting testifiers, there's a 2-minute clock. It is running, and so once you reach that 2-minute mark, I will ask you to summarize. So next we have the SPCA, which is Delegate Henson and Jones, and I believe they have someone with them.
Yes, we do. Thank you so much, Chairman. We have Kelly Brown from the SPCC. I only had one cup of coffee. SPCA of Anne Arundel County. They're here with us this morning. Kelly.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Delegate Jones and Hinson, and good morning to everybody. I'm the president of the SPCA of Anne Arundel County, and I want to thank you for your time and this opportunity to speak with you this morning. We are here asking for the support from you all for the dog kennels in our new 10,000 square foot building, which is breaking ground in spring of 2022. Each dog kennel will cost anywhere between $1,800 to $2,500, depending on the size. Coming to about $110,000 for all the dog kennels in that building. As most of you all know, we have been caring for animals in the community for over 100 years. We're going to be celebrating 102 years in September, and we're located on 11.5 acres. 5.5 acres is our nature trail, which is community nature trail open to the public, so everyone is there to enjoy. We're a no-kill shelter, and at any given time, we're caring for 500 animals. We currently operate out of aging buildings, some of which have been there since our inception, and our kennel building is the building that we are replacing. It is about 80 years old. It's long overdue for a new facility. To tell you a little bit about the kennel building, it's where the animals first come when they're surrendered. So it's a really fragile, stressful time for them. They've just left their home or their owners or whatever situation it may be. And so when they come in, it's really important to create a surrounding that is less stressful and kind of gets them to adapt as soon as possible. Despite all of our efforts of band-aiding and fixing up and new HVAC systems and everything else, obviously the decades of all this use, they're outdated. And I mean, there's cinder block floors with rusting fences, and the drainage isn't good, and sometimes it floods. So for all those reasons is why we need to get this new building in. And so our new building will have 93 dog kennels, and currently we only have 30 that are actually functioning. So you can imagine this is increasing our capacity by at least 50 to 60 dogs at any given time. Some of the new kennels will be specifically for puppies and moms, and also for infectious disease to keep from things spreading, which obviously is even worse in a kennel situation. These are going to be new, safer kennels with improved lighting, including natural light, larger runs, epoxy floors, which is much better for cleaning and keeping infectious disease under control, better temperature control, HVAC systems, and noise control ceiling, which is obviously creating a much more peaceful environment for the dogs. This is the kind of kennel that will ease the stress.
Please summarize.
And the stress and encourages successful transition for them to go to their new home. This would also help us obviously increase the capacity for the animals in the community and help the stress level. Also keep from us having to have a wait list for animals coming in. So I appreciate your consideration and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for those remarks, Ms. Brown. Are there any questions before we go to the final bond bill hearing for this morning? Seeing no questions, was there a question?
I said thank you.
Oh, okay. Yo, no, you were definitely welcome. And I guess you guys are still up. This is the Jones Henson show this morning. So the final bond bill hearing for this morning is the Hammond Harwood House. Delegate Henson, Delegate Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have representative from the Hammond Harwood House, Barbara Goyette, who's on the line to discuss the planning, design, acquisition, construction, repair, renovation, and reconstruction and capital equipment of the Hammond Harwood House.
Ms. Goyette, please.
Good morning. Thank you. I don't know why I'm not showing, but sorry. Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to present this morning. I want to thank Senator Elfreth and delegates Jones and Henson. Hammond Harwood House is the 1774 building that's located on Maryland Avenue at the corner with King George Street. It's one of the signature buildings in the Annapolis Historic District, and it's a National Historic Landmark. Unlike some of the other historic buildings in Annapolis, Hammond Harwood is not owned or leased from the state. It's run by a private 501c3. And our mission is to preserve the house for public enjoyment and education. We're open to the public for tours and a full slate of programs. We are requesting your support for this bond initiative. We hope to reimagine the street side landscape of the property along 145 feet of Maryland Avenue. Currently, the presentation of the building does not match the excellence of the architecture. The sidewalk is uneven and overgrown with weeds. The front lawn is difficult to keep neat due to constant foot and pet traffic, and there are longstanding drainage issues. A cultural landscape study completed in 2020 identified significant improvements to enhance the historic value of the property. So we would be using the bond initiative funding for design, site prep, hardscape, lighting, relaying brick sidewalk, but not for plant material. And just a note, Maryland Historical Trust does have an easement on the property. We're committed to following historic preservation standards. And in fact, Hammond Harwood serves as a model in the preservation community and adds significantly to the tourist value for Annapolis, and also pride in the community and the historic nature of our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Goyette, for that presentation. Are there any questions? Hearing none, thank you for the presentation of that bond bill initiative. Just a couple announcements for the delegation before we move to adjournment. All colleagues, all members, please encourage your staff to attend the staff meet and greet, which will be via Zoom on Valentine's Day, Monday the 14th at 2 p.m. An email has already been sent out, and I'm told a reminder will also be sent out. So please, again, it's a great time for the staff, for them to get together, fellowship, and help one another out. And so make sure you please let your staff know. Also, the dues, my understanding is that we've collected most of them. We would like to make the donation to the food bank at next Friday's meeting, at which time we'll also take a delegation picture, a delegation photo. And we're going to be meeting at the entrance of the House chamber at 9:50 or as soon as possible after delegation meeting on next Friday. So with that, I see a question from Delegate Howard.
Well, not really a question, Mr. Chair, just a quick point of interest for the good of the order. Colleagues, if you check your email, I put together a letter real quick. Just sent it out to you yesterday, so you might not have seen it. But basically, about a month and a half ago, Senator Elfreth and I were out at a Farm Bureau dinner, and it came to our attention that in the 2021 budget, the recycling program for tires, that was cut to about $750,000 from $1.5 million. And one of the requests from our folks in the ag industry was to bring that back to level funding of $1.5 million, with $1 million fenced off specifically for ag recycling of tires. Why is this important? So Anne Arundel County every year recycles about 54 tons. That's 54 tons. That's a lot of tires of these ag tires. And that puts us ahead of Calvert at 50 tons, Howard County at 25 tons, Montgomery County at 40 tons, and Charles at 30 tons. So essentially, what I was trying to do was, in a bipartisan fashion, get everybody's support to bring that funding back up to level funding with, of course, the $1 million fenced off for ag recycling for the tire program. So if you can get back to me on that, that'd be great. And I know Senator Elfreth is leading the charge in this in the Senate. And I talked to her this morning and I want to thank her for that as well. So just check your emails, and I think it's a good chance for us all to come together for a good cause on, quite frankly, keeping old used tires out of the ditches in our roads in Anne Arundel County.
Thank you, Delegate Howard, for that information. And members, please check your email and respond accordingly. Delegate Chang.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This question is Delegate Howard. Do you know what the request is, what the appropriations is in the budget at this time in the operating?
No, quite frankly, Delegate Chang, I don't. But I know that last year's was 750, or from 1.5 million in previous years to 750. So really what we're doing is we're just looking, again, to just show support to bring it back up for level funding to the $1.5 million.
I think a starting point would be to understand what is currently in the operating budget at this time, or what the request has been, and then go from there.
Delegate Chang, you broke up.
I think, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now we can.
Yeah.
I think what might be a good starting point is to find out what is included in the operating budget at this time, and then to go from
well,
there.
that would be right up your alley, Delegate Chang, since you're vice chair of the Appropriations Committee. So I look forward to talking to you about that moving forward.
Right. So I think that we take a look at the budget, see what's in the budget, and then go from
Well,
there.
and that's really what we're trying to accomplish, is just to make sure that that's within the budget parameters. And we're just trying to do it as a whole, both in the Senate delegation and in the House delegation, just to make the committee, the Appropriations Committee, aware.
Right. And as you know, that the legislature cannot add any funds to the operating at this time. It comes from the administration, and it can come through either the initial budget or additional supplementals. As far as any dollars that are fenced off, just because they're fenced off does not necessarily mean that the administration will release those funds to be appropriated to that specific project. So there's just things to be considered, but I think that a good baseline too is that I'll connect with you later. We'll look at what's in the operating budget for this fiscal year.
Yeah, and I am aware of the budgetary process. Thanks for bringing that to the committee's attention. The second point of this, and I did forget to mention it, would be that it would go to the administration.
Okay. All right. So thank you both very much for those helpful comments. And certainly I'm sure there'll be some more discussions offline. At this time, if there are no other comments from members of the delegation, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Thank everyone for this morning's meeting. We went a little bit long. We'll try to get it, but we did have a lot of bond initiatives, so we'll try to get back on track next week. Have a great weekend. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone.